if I told you that the technology behind Disney's Frozen just cracked one of history's most chilling mysteries? After 65 years of speculation, wild theories, and endless debates, artificial intelligence and cutting-edge computer simulations have finally revealed what really happened on that terrifying night in the Ural Mountains. And by the end, you'll see why experts are calling this the darkest revelation in Russian history.
Date says February 15th, 59. This is a document that shouldn't exist.
The document does exist. Its validity has been confirmed by handwriting and technical analysis.
The night that haunted the world. It's February 1959, deep in the frozen wilderness of Russia's Ural Mountains. 9 experienced hikers, all students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, are on what should have been an incredible adventure. Led by Igor Dyatlov, these weren't your average weekend warriors. They were seasoned mountaineers who knew these mountains like the back of their hands. But something went horribly wrong on the night of the 1st of February. Something so terrifying that it forced these experienced hikers to slash their way out of their own tent from the inside and flee barefoot into the deadly Russian winter. What they left behind became one of the most bone-chilling crime scenes in history. When search teams finally found them weeks later, the scene was absolutely disturbing. 4 of the hikers had severe chest or skull injuries, 2 were missing eyes, 1 had lost a tongue, and some were naked. The tent was cut open from the inside, their belongings scattered, and footprints leading away into the snow showed they had left in a panic, some barefoot, others in just socks. The Soviet authorities were baffled. The official investigation concluded with a phrase that only deepened the mystery: death by compelling natural force. But what natural force could cause such bizarre injuries? What could terrify experienced mountaineers so much that they'd rather face certain death in the freezing wilderness than stay in their shelter? For over 6 decades, this incident has spawned countless theories. Government cover-ups, secret military experiments, UFO encounters, attacks by the legendary Yeti, infrasound phenomena that can drive people insane, katabatic winds, and even theories about time portals. The Dyatlov Pass incident became the ultimate unsolved mystery, captivating investigators, conspiracy theorists, and curious minds around the world. The location itself seemed cursed. Locals had always called it Dead Mountain, and after 1959, it officially became known as Dyatlov Pass in honor of the group's leader. But here's what's truly unsettling. Despite all the theories, despite decades of investigations, despite books, documentaries, and countless expeditions to the site, nobody could definitively explain what happened that night. Until now. The power of modern AI and simulation. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating and a little ironic. The breakthrough in solving this decades-old mystery came from an unexpected source: the entertainment industry. You know how Disney's Frozen had those incredibly realistic snow and ice effects? Well, the same computational technology used to animate Elsa's Ice Palace has now been turned toward solving real-world mysteries. Engineers used animation code similar to that used in Frozen to solve the Dyatlov Pass mystery. But this isn't just about pretty graphics. We're talking about sophisticated AI-powered simulations that can model complex physical phenomena with stunning accuracy. Scientists at ETH Zurich and the Swiss Federal Institute for Forest, Snow, and Landscape Research didn't just theorize about what happened. They recreated it digitally, using advanced computer modeling, meteorological data, and artificial intelligence algorithms. They built virtual recreations of that fateful night in 1959. The AI analyzed thousands of variables: wind patterns, snow density, temperature fluctuations, terrain characteristics, and even the specific way the hikers had set up their camp. Using advanced simulations, researchers demonstrated how even a small snow slab could generate the kinds of injuries seen in the Dyatlov hikers. But here's what makes this research so compelling. The AI didn't just look at one possible scenario. It ran millions of simulations, testing every conceivable combination of factors. It considered the exact positioning of the tent, the weight of accumulated snow, wind speeds, and even the specific timeline of events based on the evidence found at the scene. What the AI discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The answer wasn't some exotic phenomenon or government conspiracy. It was something much more sinister, because it was so perfectly natural, so unavoidable, and so utterly devastating. The simulation revealed that the hikers had unknowingly camped in what scientists now call an avalanche trap. Not just any avalanche, but a very specific type that's almost impossible to predict and incredibly rare. This wasn't your typical Hollywood avalanche with tons of snow thundering down a mountain. This was something much more subtle and much more deadly. The horrifying truth revealed. Now, here's where the story gets genuinely disturbing. The AI simulations revealed that what killed the Dyatlov hikers was what scientists call a delayed slab avalanche. Let me paint you a picture of just how nightmarish this scenario actually was. Imagine you're sleeping peacefully in your tent, feeling completely safe. The weather has been challenging, sure, but you're experienced, your equipment is solid, and you've weathered worse conditions before. You have no idea that above you, on the slope you deliberately chose because it seemed stable, a deadly trap has been forming for hours. The AI revealed that strong katabatic winds, which are powerful downslope winds that can reach incredible speeds, had been building up a snow slab throughout the day. But here's the terrifying part. This slab was perfectly balanced, like a sword, hanging by a thread above the hikers' heads. The simulation showed that sometime during the night, this precarious balance finally gave way. But it wasn't a massive, noisy avalanche that would have woken everyone up. Instead, it was a relatively small but incredibly dense slab of snow that slid down silently and struck the tent with devastating force. The snow's impact against bodies trapped between the slab and the tent floor created thoracic deformations consistent with those documented in forensic reports. The AI calculated that even a small snow slab could generate forces equivalent to being hit by a car. But here's what's truly haunting about what the AI discovered. The hikers didn't die immediately. The simulation revealed a timeline of terror that lasted for hours. First, the impact of the snow slab caused severe internal injuries to some of the hikers, including crushing chest injuries and skull fractures. But others were merely trapped, panicked, and desperate to escape what they thought might be a much larger avalanche coming down on top of them. In their terror and confusion, they cut their way out of the tent from the inside. You can still see these knife cuts in the preserved tent fragments. But here's where the situation became a perfect storm of bad decisions born from panic and limited information. The AI simulations showed that the hikers, now partially injured and in complete darkness, made the fatal decision to flee from what they thought was an immediate avalanche threat. They expected to return to their tent once the danger passed, which explains why they left without proper clothing or equipment. But the danger they fled from was already over. The slab had already fallen. There was no ongoing avalanche threat. If they had stayed, if they had simply waited, they would have survived. Instead, they found themselves scattered in the deadly Russian winter, some injured, some helping the wounded, all gradually succumbing to hypothermia and the brutal elements. The chilling details AI uncovered. The AI analysis revealed details that are both fascinating and deeply unsettling. It explained not just how the hikers died, but the specific sequence of events that unfolded throughout that horrific night. The simulation showed that the group didn't flee randomly. They maintained some organization even in their panic, which speaks to their experience and training. Some of the stronger members helped the injured ones, trying to get them to safety. They attempted to dig snow caves for shelter, showing they were still thinking rationally despite the desperate situation. But here's what's truly chilling. The AI calculated that they were probably alive for hours after fleeing the tent. Hours of struggling against the cold. Hours of trying to help their injured friends. Hours of slowly realizing that they might not make it back. The simulation also explained some of the more bizarre aspects of the case that had fueled conspiracy theories for decades. The missing eyes and tongue that had led to speculation about animal attacks. The AI analysis, combined with forensic knowledge, showed these were consistent with natural decomposition processes and scavenging by local wildlife over the weeks before the bodies were discovered. The mysterious radiation found on some clothing? Recent investigations suggest this was likely from contamination from thorium mantles in camping lanterns, which was completely normal for the time period, but misunderstood by investigators in 1959. Even the strange orange tans reported on some of the bodies can be explained by a combination of factors: exposure to wind and cold, the natural processes of decay, and possibly even the specific lighting conditions when the bodies were examined. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what the AI revealed about the preventability of this tragedy. The simulation showed that if the hikers had set up their tent just 50 meters in a different direction, they would have been completely safe. 50 meters, that's less than half a football field, separated them from safety and disaster. The AI also calculated that if they had made different decisions in those first critical minutes after the slab hit, if they had stayed calm, if they had properly assessed the situation, if they had remained in or near their tent, they would have survived with only minor injuries. What this means for other unsolved mysteries. The breakthrough in the Dyatlov Pass case represents something much bigger than solving one mystery. It shows us how artificial intelligence and advanced simulation technology are revolutionizing our understanding of historical events and unsolved cases. Think about it. For 65 years, human investigators equipped with all the tools and knowledge of their time couldn't definitively explain what happened. They had theories, they had evidence, they had expertise, but they couldn't recreate the complex interplay of factors that led to this tragedy. AI doesn't get distracted by emotions, doesn't fall prey to confirmation bias, and doesn't get caught up in exciting conspiracy theories. It analyzes data objectively, considers multiple variables simultaneously, and can run scenarios that would take human investigators lifetimes to explore. This same technology is now being applied to other famous unsolved cases. Could AI help us understand what really happened to Amelia Earhart? Could it shed new light on the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? What about historical mysteries like the fate of the lost colony of Roanoke? The implications are staggering. We're entering an era where cold cases that have baffled investigators for decades might finally get the answers they deserve. But there's also something sobering about the Dyatlov Pass solution. It reminds us that sometimes the truth is more mundane than our imaginations want it to be. Russia reopened an investigation into the incident in 2019, concluding in 2020 that an avalanche had most likely forced survivors to suddenly leave their camp in low-visibility conditions with inadequate clothing, before ultimately dying of hypothermia. The official Russian conclusion, reached through traditional investigative methods, aligned remarkably well with what the AI simulations later confirmed in much greater detail. The human cost of mystery. While the scientific breakthrough is remarkable, we shouldn't forget the human element of this story. 9 young people, Igor Dyatlov, Yuri Doroshenko, Georgy Krivonyshenko, Yuri Yudin, who turned back early due to illness and was the sole survivor, Alexander Kolovatov, Rustem Slobodin, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, and Nikolai Thibault Brignoles lost their lives in this tragedy. These weren't just names in a mystery story. They were students with dreams, friends with inside jokes, experienced hikers who loved the mountains. Igor Dyatlov was known for his meticulous planning and leadership skills. Zinaida Kolmogorova was one of the few women in her engineering program and was passionate about hiking. Each had their own story, their own aspirations. The AI analysis makes their final hours even more heartbreaking because it shows us they did everything they could to survive and help each other. In their final moments, facing impossible odds, they still tried to work as a team. Some of the stronger members clearly attempted to help the injured ones reach safety. For their families, who spent decades wondering if their loved ones had suffered, if they had been victims of something sinister, the AI findings provide a kind of closure. These weren't victims of government experiments or alien encounters. They were victims of a freak natural occurrence, an incredibly rare meteorological event that they couldn't have predicted or prevented. But there's also something deeply tragic about learning that their deaths could have been avoided with different decisions made in moments of panic. It's a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in dangerous environments, and how even experienced outdoors enthusiasts can become victims of circumstances beyond their control. Lessons for modern adventurers. The AI analysis of the Dyatlov Pass incident offers valuable lessons for today's hikers, mountaineers, and outdoor enthusiasts. The direct evidence from the Dyatlov Pass area obtained in those expeditions confirms that the region is avalanche-prone and that slopes in this area are steep enough for avalanches to release. Modern weather forecasting, avalanche prediction systems, and emergency communication devices might have prevented this tragedy. Today's hikers have access to satellite communicators, detailed weather models, and avalanche safety education that simply didn't exist in 1959. The incident also highlights the importance of staying calm in emergency situations. The hikers' panic, while completely understandable, led them to make decisions that ultimately proved fatal. Modern survival training emphasizes the importance of stopping, assessing the situation, and making rational decisions even under extreme stress. Emergency shelters, better understanding of hypothermia prevention, and modern rescue techniques could have meant the difference between tragedy and a harrowing but survivable experience. The AI simulation showed that even with the injuries caused by the snow slab, proper shelter and medical attention could have saved lives. But perhaps most importantly, the Dyatlov Pass case reminds us that nature is unpredictable and unforgiving. Even with all our modern technology and knowledge, the wilderness still poses serious risks. Respect for these risks, proper preparation, and emergency planning remain as crucial today as they were in 1959. The technology behind the breakthrough. Let's dive deeper into exactly how artificial intelligence cracked this decades-old mystery. The breakthrough wasn't the result of a single AI system, but rather a combination of multiple advanced technologies working together. The research team used sophisticated weather modeling AI that could recreate the exact meteorological conditions on that February night in 1959. This included wind patterns, temperature variations, humidity levels, and snow conditions. The AI analyzed historical weather data and used machine learning algorithms to fill in gaps where specific measurements weren't available. Snow physics simulation, the same technology used for realistic snow effects in movies like Frozen, was adapted to model the behavior of snow slabs under various conditions. The AI could calculate how different types of snow would behave under specific wind conditions, temperatures, and loading scenarios. Terrain modeling used satellite imagery, topographical data, and even photographs from the original investigation to create a precise digital recreation of the campsite and surrounding area. The AI could then test how different weather events would affect this specific location. Biomechanical analysis helped the AI understand how the forces generated by a snow slab impact would affect human bodies in various positions. This was crucial for determining whether the avalanche theory could account for the specific injuries found on the victims. The really impressive part was how all these systems worked together. The AI didn't just run one simulation, it ran thousands, testing different variables and scenarios. It considered what would happen if the snow slab was larger or smaller, if the wind came from different directions, if the tent was positioned slightly differently. This comprehensive approach is what gave researchers confidence in their conclusions. It was a complete picture that accounted for all the known facts about the case. Debunking the alternative theories. Now that we have a scientifically backed explanation, it's worth looking at some of the alternative theories that have captivated people for decades and understanding why they don't hold up to scientific scrutiny. The military weapons test theory was popular for years, suggesting that the hikers were victims of a secret Soviet paratrooper training exercise or weapons testing. However, the AI analysis shows that the injury patterns and evidence at the scene are entirely consistent with natural causes. There's no evidence of external weapons, explosives, or military involvement. The UFO theory gained traction, partly because of reports of strange lights in the sky around the time of the incident. However, these lights were most likely rocket tests from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome, which was conducting launches during that time period. The Soviet space program was highly classified, which may have contributed to the mystery. Yeti or Bigfoot attacks were theorized by some, pointing to the strange injuries and the hikers' apparent panic. But the AI simulations show that all the injuries can be explained by the avalanche, subsequent falls, and natural postmortem processes. There's no evidence of any large predator attacks. The infrasound theory suggested that natural acoustic phenomena could have driven the hikers to panic and flee. While infrasound can indeed cause discomfort and anxiety in some people, there's no evidence it occurred at Dyatlov Pass that night, and it wouldn't explain the physical injuries. Government cover-up theories persist partly because of the secretive nature of the Soviet investigation. However, this secrecy was likely due to embarrassment over the failed rescue operation and the Soviet system's general reluctance to admit to tragedies that might reflect poorly on their competence. What's fascinating is how the human mind gravitates toward exciting, mysterious explanations when faced with incomplete information. The AI analysis reminds us that sometimes the truth really is more mundane than fiction, but no less tragic for being so. After examining and debunking these alternative theories, what becomes clear is how much the Dyatlov Pass tragedy has been shaped by speculation rather than evidence. For decades, the lack of clear answers created space for imaginative stories that captured global attention, from supernatural creatures to secret government plots. But with AI-driven analysis providing a grounded, scientific explanation, we can finally shift the focus away from myths and toward understanding the real human cost of this disaster. The hiker's legacy deserves to be one of remembrance and respect, not sensationalism, reminding us that truth, though less glamorous than conspiracy, can still be profoundly powerful. The broader implications. The successful application of AI to the Dyatlov Pass mystery represents a watershed moment in criminal investigation and historical analysis. We're witnessing the birth of a new field: computational forensics. Law enforcement agencies around the world are now exploring how similar technologies could be applied to cold cases, missing persons cases, unsolved murders, and mysterious disappearances that have stumped investigators for years might finally get the resolution they deserve. Archaeological mysteries are also getting the AI treatment. Researchers are using similar simulation techniques to understand how ancient structures were built, why certain civilizations disappeared, and how historical events unfolded. Climate science is benefiting enormously from these advances. The same snow physics models used to solve the Dyatlov Pass case are being used to predict avalanche risks, understand climate change impacts, and improve weather forecasting. But there are also important ethical considerations. As AI becomes better at analyzing human behavior and predicting outcomes, we need to be careful about privacy, consent, and the responsible use of these powerful tools. The Dyatlov Pass case also raises questions about the nature of mystery and human psychology. Why are we so drawn to conspiracy theories and exotic explanations? What does it say about us that many people seem almost disappointed to learn the truth was just a natural disaster rather than something more exciting? There's something both humbling and empowering about this breakthrough. Humbling because it reminds us how much we still don't understand about the natural world. Empowering because it shows us that with the right tools and approach, even the most perplexing mysteries can eventually be solved. After 65 years of speculation and conspiracy theories, artificial intelligence has finally provided a clear explanation for the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. The deaths of 9 young hikers weren't caused by aliens, secret experiments, or mythical creatures, but by a rare delayed slab avalanche, compounded by panic and the brutal Russian winter. The real breakthrough lies not just in solving this mystery, but in showing how AI can unravel long-standing enigmas. From natural disasters to unsolved crimes, these tools are reshaping how we uncover truth. The Dyatlov hikers should be remembered not as figures of conspiracy, but as adventurous young people whose tragic fate underscores the immense power of nature and the importance of caution in the wilderness. What do you think about AI solving this decades-old mystery? Are you satisfied with this explanation, or do you still think there's more to the story?